Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, in the news today, U.S. deciding to or trying to put sanctions upon a person or a family rather than a country. So we'll see how President Vladimir Putin feels about that. Also, China is expanding their military spending, still nowhere near what the U.S. spends on their military each year, but they're looking to expand their military spending along with their Belt and Road Initiative that they started quite a while ago, that is said to connect 2/3 of the world's population once it's completed. So these stories, and also we have more on India and Pakistan and just how far are they willing to take their skirmish. Are they willing to use nuclear weapons? But first, we're going to talk about depression. Now, depression is an illness that affects 1 out of every 6 adults in America. Now, that totals about 16 million people in the U.S. annually. Now, the FDA is looking at approving a new treatment for those suffering from depression. It would be the first of its kind in decades.
For people like 37-year-old Michael Wurst, it couldn't have come at a better time. As long as he can remember, he has suffered with severe depression. While life has an absolute struggle for Michael, not even the strongest combination of medications were effective for him. But in 2017, he participated in a clinical trial for ketamine, what many know as Special K, a drug used illegally for partygoers.
Now, Michael was given 6 weekly infusions, and by the 4th treatment, the weight in his mind seemed to disappear. Now, recently married, he and his wife are moving into their new home. Now, he says ketamine has allowed him to experience life again.
The clinical tests were run by giving patients IV infusions, but a nasal spray form of the ketamine called S-ketamine has been developed, and the FDA is looking at approving it for use by those who have treatment-resistant depression, like Michael. Of course, the FDA and Janssen's definition, a person has treatment-resistant depression when at least 2 medications fail to work for them. Now, this occurs within what they say about 30% of all those who suffer with major depression.
Now, Dr. Dennis Charney, the dean at Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, told CBS News, "We found in our first study of ketamine, the patients started feeling better within a few hours." Now, Dr. Charney has spent 20 years studying ketamine. He holds a patent for the drug, which has been licensed to Janssen, the maker of S-ketamine. And of course, any profits that are made, Dr. Charney will share in. And as we reported before, that is a very big push for these doctors because they get such a large kickback from the profits of the sale of these drugs.
That's right. It wasn't that long ago that that some investigations were looked into doctors who were over-prescribing, in fact, opioids, because of the kickbacks and the benefits that they got, the incentives they got for prescribing it to their patients. Well, Charney explains that even though the drugs have been around since the 1960s, there was no novel mechanism for treatment of depression until ketamine. So this is really a brand new approach to treating depression.
Well, that leads right into our next story. There is an ever-growing price difference in the same prescription drugs. Now, literally, the price can vary from hundreds to even thousands of dollars, just depending upon where you purchase it. As a result, 1 in 4 Americans are struggling to pay for their meds, now according to a Kaiser Health tracking poll. And that's understandable as the price of prescription drugs continues to climb. Now, so far in 2019, the price of over 250 prescription drugs have risen on average 6%, says Pharmacy Savings Solutions.
So not only are the prices consistently getting higher, but when your doctor prescribes some medication for you, it's hard to say how much it will actually cost. The U.S. Public Interest Research Group, or PIRG for short, recently surveyed hundreds of pharmacies nationwide. What they found was staggering price differences for the exact same meds.
Well, but many Americans need their life-saving medications no matter how much it costs. Now, Brianna Hamilton, a diabetic, was interviewed by CBS News and says, anytime I eat anything, even with a small amount of sugar in it, I have to take insulin or my blood sugar really goes high. I could end up in a coma or I could be dead. Now, Brianna, like 30 million other Americans who suffer with diabetes, needs insulin to keep her alive.
Just last year, she paid $60 for her 90-day supply of Novolog pens, which is one brand of insulin she uses. This year, Hamilton's insurance changed, which resulted in her 90-day supply now costing $1,400. Well, with all the supplies and two types of insulin she uses, her monthly medication bill is now $1,000, and that includes a coupon she receives from the drug manufacturer.
$1,000 a month, that's quite a hefty bill for anyone to be looking at.
No, that's for sure.
Well, she needs to reach her $3,000 deductible before her new insurance will cover any costs. Now, Brianna explains, it's one of those things where I tried to do everything right financially, get my degree, get a good job, and I still, if I don't cut back on a lot of stuff, she said, I could be homeless or dead without my insulin. And that's not fair.
Yeah, that's something that definitely adds to a person's stress when they already have the weight of an illness that they have to monitor. Now they have the increasing prices of the drugs that they need, and it's just probably like an uphill and frustrating battle for them.
Right.
Well, Adam Garber is a consumer watchdog for USPIRG, and he tells CBS the real price variations we're seeing have huge health consequences for Americans. The group surveyed more than 250 pharmacies across the country for cash prices of common medications. The cash price is what someone pays if they are underinsured or don't have insurance at all. People in this category also do not qualify for coupons or savings programs, which are sometimes offered by drug manufacturers.
Well, the study found a wide range of prices for the exact same medications. If consumers shopped around, they could save anywhere from $100 to $5,400 a year. For example, in Ohio, they found an inhaler being sold for $11.99 at one pharmacy and $1,136 at a different pharmacy. Now, the inhalers were exactly the same. Now, a generic medicine taken to lower cholesterol costs $7 or $393, depending upon where it was purchased in North Carolina.
Talk about price gouging.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Stephen Schondelmeyer, a professor of pharmaceutical economics at the University of Minnesota, admits there is no one who really gives price transparency, saying at all levels of the marketplace, from the manufacturer to the wholesaler to the retailer and then to the insurer and the pharmacy benefit manager, they all kind of hide the prices. They don't like to make their prices transparent to anyone.
Well, the price of drugs isn't the only thing we have to worry about these days. India and Pakistan continue to make headlines. Now, this week, India is saying they shot down a Pakistani drone that flew across their border. But are they just having a neighborly spat, or is this the makings of a much larger conflict between these two nuclear powers? Now, it's definitely something to consider, since they have been at odds over the territory of Kashmir since 1947. Now, both countries have said they will defend themselves by whatever means they feel is necessary, and that includes nuclear weapons.
In other Asian news, China has had to defend its growing friendship with Italy against the United States. This comes after Washington pressured Rome not to join Beijing's Belt and Road Infrastructure project. A White House National Security Council spokesman told the Financial Times, "We view BRI, or Belt and Road Initiative, as a made by China for China initiative. We are skeptical that the Italian government's endorsement will bring any sustained economic benefits to the Italian people, and it may end up harming Italy's global reputation in the long run.
Well, in rebuttal to the statement, Liu Kang, China's foreign ministry spokesperson, said this position taken by the U.S. side is laughable. As a major country, Italy knows exactly what policies serve its own interests, and it can make its decisions independently.
Well, President Xi Jinping is planning to visit Italy at the end of the month, at which time Rome will probably come on board, officially joining the initiative. Italy's government has also been commenting on how they will benefit from the new partnership. One way for us to increase trade values is to first increase investment. This is done by these memorandums, One Belt, One Road. It is a very fertile area for investment. Well, these comments were made by Michael Girassi, Undersecretary of the Italian Economic Development Ministry.
Well, just to remind everyone, China's plan for the Belt and Road Initiative stretches over 3 continents, from China all the way to Europe and Africa. It's anticipated that upon completion, the BRI will connect close to 2/3 of the world's population by linking key cities through roads, railways, and seaports. Now, Beijing has already promised to contribute $1 trillion in infrastructure development over the next 10 years. Now, the U.S. is opposed to the idea, however, expressing concerns over security and also questioning China's true motives for the project.
Well, China is definitely not only investing a lot of money in their Belt and Road Initiative, but they're also expanding their initiatives in their military sector, as they plan to put more money into the military, as I think they're basically the second largest spender of military budget after the United States. And we're also looking at the fact that Turkey, in regards to the military, is still planning to go through with their order of the S-400 missiles from Russia. And our field correspondent, Larry McGee, has more information on that. Larry, what do you have for us?
The tussle between Beijing and Washington is showing no signs of mellowing, and China, in fact, is taking it up a notch by increasing its military spending. The news came at China's 13th National Congress, where the Republic outlined its economic vision for the forthcoming year. The budgetary draft included expanded military spending, which officials explained as being necessary to produce appropriate growth and to safeguard China's national security. The U.S. frames Beijing's activities in a different light, however, and accuses the Asian powerhouse of harboring revisionist intentions and using its military clout to expand its footprint. China is also bolstering its nuclear arsenal, but even amid all of this, analysts point out that Beijing's military spending is still significantly less than that of the United States. While the current administration is campaigning to increase America's military expenditures to $717 billion for 2019, China is aiming to spend $177.6 billion. The spokesperson for the country's 13th National Congress says that that amount represents only 1.3% of its GDP, while other major nations spend as much as 2%. This, commentators believe, is an obvious allusion to the NATO alliance, where all member states are required to spend at least 2% of their nation's gross domestic product on defense. With many of the Atlantic member states lagging behind that goal, President Trump has made it a priority of his administration to demand that delinquent nations pay up. China ultimately contends that while America accuses them of having global ambitions, it is the U.S. that has 800 military bases scattered throughout the world, while China, at least at present, has only 2 situated in Africa and Djibouti. In imagining the sorts of situations that could lead to large-scale conflict, global analysts have been saying for years that the next wars will be fought over water. This week, the United States made headlines after it took part in an exercise that unfolded near China's man-made islands in the South China Sea. America insists that the islands have been plunged into international waters and has been flying missions over the contested isles to demonstrate its disapproval. The latest exercise included B-52 bombers. One flew over the contested waters, while the other flew in cooperation with Japanese planes down the coast of Japan. The B-52 bomber is reported to be capable of carrying 70,000 pounds of weapons with a combat range of 8,800 miles. The whole ordeal has had the side effect of spooking some of America's allies in the region, like the Philippines, who are now calling for a review of the Mutual Defense Treaty it signed with the U.S. in 1951. The agreement calls for both nations to come to the aid of the other in several scenarios, including an attack on either of the nation's armed vessels. In commenting on the matter of the dispute, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lu Kang says the situation is steadily moving in a positive direction. This, he says, is evinced by joint efforts between Beijing and other nations in the region. The spokesman stated that all parties are committed to promoting negotiations on a code of conduct in the South China Sea. At the same time, Mr. Kang said, China and other countries surrounding the South China Sea are also committed to maintaining regional peace and stability. Therefore, if nations outside the region, such as the United States, truly value peace and the well-being of regional populations, he says, then they should not stir up trouble from afar. Turkey has had no trouble lately informing the U.S. that it no longer intends to play along. The latest conflict between the two contentious allies stems from Turkey's ambition to purchase S-400 missile systems from Russia. The United States has been attempting to exert pressure to coerce Ankara to reconsider, but President Erdogan says that Turkey is independent and not slaves. The Turkish president says the deal with Moscow is signed and was made under very convenient terms, and the delivery date was actually moved forward to July. America is forewarning that the deal might jeopardize relations between the two nations and might also cause reconsideration of the U.S.'s F-35 fighter jets that the country is also seeking to obtain. Turkey asserts that it needs alternative missile defenses to counter threats in the region. For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan, Jeff, back to you.
Katan, this consensus among the nations that they do not like the U.S. meddling in their business, as we just heard from the president of Turkey saying that, you know, it's going to be their decision on whether or not they're going to go ahead with these S-400 missiles, and the United States isn't going to have a say in it.
That's right.
Well, the U.S. is a little bothered by the Russian pipeline deals with Germany and China. A new pipeline is in the works for the European nation called the Turk-stream II. Now, this particular pipeline will run through Bulgaria to supply most of Western Europe.
Well, some members of the U.S. Congress think that President Trump isn't hard enough on Russia and new legislation is required. The U.S. House of Representatives just passed 4 bills targeting Russia, and within those bills, one of them mandate that no federal agency recognize Crimea as being part of Russia, and 2, that Putin and his family's assets be looked into. In fact, some of the toughest sanctions on Russia were passed under the Trump administration.
Sigal Mandelker, the Treasury Under Secretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, said the Treasury remains committed to targeting Russian-backed entities that seek to profit from Russia's illegal annexation and occupation of Crimea. Now, our sanctions are a clear reminder that efforts seeking to normalize investment and economic relationships with those operating in Crimea will not be tolerated and are subject to U.S. and EU sanctions authorities.
Well, in Poland, Trump has escalated the U.S. NATO military presence along with conducting military exercises in the Black Sea. Trump has also authorized the sale of lethal arms to anti-Russian government bases in Kiev, along with attacking the Syrian Republic government, something that his predecessors wouldn't do.
Well, heavy fighting in Syria as the U.S.-backed forces battle against the last ISIS stronghold in the country. Now, civil war has left the country in ruins, and it will take years to rebuild. An architect who visited her office on the 12th floor, once a flourishing city in an active building of professionals, now a building destroyed and left in a pile of rubble. Well, she visited her studio to see what was left. Once there, she saw hundreds of shell casings from fighting, and the fighting that destroyed an estimated 35,000 homes. Now, that coupled with an estimated 500,000 people killed by the war and millions more displaced.
Sad. Many cities were affected, including Aleppo and the thriving tourist city of Palmyra, with its ancient ruins and a newer section of homes and buildings. But Before the war there in Palmyra, there were over 80,000 people living in the city. Now, there are only an estimated 35 families that have returned after all of the fighting has stopped. Rebuilding is key to the city's survival, but a $250 billion price tag is at the helm, and of course there is no commitment from the Syrian government or help from the international community, so it looks like Syria is slated to just continue to lay in rubble.
And it's hard to imagine how long, I mean, $250 billion, how long would that take to get anywhere near what it was before all that fighting took place?
Oh, yeah, it would take a while to rebuild the city back to the point that it was, not to mention the fact that I'm sure to this very day there's still teams of people still going out and burying, recovering, accounting for, and properly burying the dead who were killed in all of that fighting.
Well, at a recent speaking event at CERAWeek, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo spoke to oil executives as they gathered together at this once-a-year meeting to hash out goals for the oil industry. While he had the floor, he mentioned in his speech that the State Department wants to work with each and every executive in attendance, American and foreign companies alike, and it's American producers working in tandem with American diplomats who can create their prosperity and stability all around the world.
Well, with that, it seems that the Secretary is suggesting that oil companies work with diplomats, like you just said, to do the bidding of the United States government. Some wonder if this is a new vision for business, not one of free capitalism, but a model that all business must be done for the good of the state. Well, Jeff, it definitely would affect not only those going into business, but the freedom that come with owning your business in that regards, at least to the oil industry, because, you know, as we know, there are billions and billions of dollars made yearly through the oil industry, and I guess America still wants to get a little bit more piece of that pie, or a hand on the control of how it's distributed.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that always wanting their hands in whatever's taking place in the different countries and so forth.
That's right. You know, drugs, weapons, and international disputes aren't bringing the citizens of this great planet any closer to the goal of peace. But there is a peaceful solution for mankind found in the laws of peace in your holy scriptures. And Yisrael Hawkins and the House of Yahweh are teaching the way to peace and how to make it last. To find out more, of course, you can contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them on any of their websites, Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@yahweh.com. Any international calls, call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, don't forget to go to YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com. Two excellent Bible study tools on the market. They're absolutely free. You can search endless topics on the Holy Scriptures and find endless information from the books of Israel and other sources written by Yisrael Hawkins on these on any topic you so choose, guaranteed to occupy your time for hours on end with Bible study.
Well, stay with us and don't go anywhere. Get your pencil, your paper, and of course your Holy Scriptures together, and stay tuned, because up next is Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.